Dr. Pınar Ayyıldız is a translator, interpreter, sociologist, teacher, trainer, language instructor, and holds MA and doctoral philosophy degrees in educational management. She worked as a testing member, head teacher, academic coordinator, dean of students, and director of English preparatory school in higher education institutions. Today, she has taught several courses in various faculties. She has worked on topics like epistemology of educational sciences. She holds various academic memberships and is the reviewer editor of international journals. She's an assistant professor of Management Information Systems Department and the director of Center of Research and Learning in Ankara Medipol University, Turkey. Today she will be talking about flipped learning, philosophy, Modus, Operandi, Practicum, and the model in use. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Dr. Ayyıldız to the stage now.
Hello everyone, it's a great pleasure to be amongst you, dear colleagues, distinguished professors, and it's great to be a part of this great project actually. And being the last plenary speaker, I will keep it a bit shorter, no worries about that. So, as the name suggests, today I'm going to try to focus on flipped learning, the philosophical science and aspects, modus operandi, practicum, and a model in use. So, before we start, I wanted to share a quote with you from Harris. You know Harris? From somewhere? You know him? He's a journalist, actually. And I really love one of his quotes. I wanted to share this. Information is given out, communication is getting through. Did you like it too? Did you find it meaningful? Okay, great. Okay. And being the last plenary speaker, I have a little surprise for you. I just copied, with the permission of the project members, I copied down some of the key or highlight statements from the project website. Could you try to fill the blanks in with the people sitting around you? Could you do that? Reaching towards the end of the conference. I hope you're going to do that. Very, very quickly. I hope you're not cheating. Would you like to share any of your ideas or any of the blanks? Please. Would you agree? Can we say no or yes? Yes. Why not? We can say. Thank you, Hocam. Yes, please.
Classroom where the teacher is not safe on the stage, but silent guides on the side.
Okay, thank you very much. And Hocam, yes.
An environment where students take responsibility for their own learning.
For their own learning. You're underlining that. Okay. Hocam? Any other guesses or alternative answers to the blanks? Hocam? Okay. Thank you. Buyurun hocam.
A classroom where students who are slow learners don't get left behind.
Thank you very much. Any others?
May I ask something?
Of course, please.
Sometimes I see some little
Yes.
that
Yes.
does that mean it has two?
It doesn't have to be in this way, but it just scaffolds you through the answers or alternative answers.
Maybe the second one I can change. One person take responsibility for their own contributions.
Okay, you're making it a bit longer then. Okay, why not hocam? Again, why not? Thank you. Thank you. Any other contributions? Shall I move forward? Okay. So, as I said earlier, these are not the answers, but some alternative ones or maybe the possible answers, because we can't have one single piece of answer. In life and in education settings, it's even more difficult, if you agree with me. So, you can have a very quick look through the actual, the authentic, the original statements, but as I say, we don't need to have one single word or a set of words, definite set of words for the blanks. Which one is your favorite one? The phrases. Amongst the phrases, which one is your favorite?
Students looking at structure without need direction.
Why not? Which one?
Because in the classroom there should be a structure.
Yes.
And the instruction designers, and what didn't have the classroom, they sometimes be released with coverage.
Okay. So, thank you for the feedback. Any other comments? Okay, I'm moving on then. And content-wise, as the name suggests, the session, I'm going to focus on philosophy, then Modus Operandi, then Practicum, and a model in use. And aims-wise, hopefully all together we will revisit the underlying philosophy and philosophies of flipped learning. Then we're going to have a little bit of a closer look at the practices, the operations pertaining to the flipped learning, flipped classroom. Then we're going to cast more light on the know-how part, the practicum, and then I'm going to share a relevant model that we're trying to establish, we're trying to create, you can call it, at Ankara Medipol University, the university I'm working at and working for. Philosophy-wise, I again wanted to quote or share with you a nice statement, a phrase. And as you can see, some parts, some words or phrases are highly underlined and highlighted. Are educated, standardized, asked to, expert, recall the learned information. Do you like these statements? Are you happy with these statements, the words, the underlined ones? It's totally against the spirit of the conference, isn't it? Yeah. They're all not the ones we really like. Actually, this is an excerpt type of thing from Sam's book. I think one of the professors and plenary speakers mentioned this author. It's been almost a decade when the author wrote these. Do you see a lot of changes within 10 years? Maybe it depends on where we look at and where we look from, where we stand. It's another thing, of course. So, philosophy-wise, yes, we can say a lot of things. For example, yes, we know flipped learning can very normally have several definitions, and actually when we check the relevant literature, we see different definitions, and most scholars have their own way of, explaining flipped learning, education, but yet, of course, traditional way of teaching is flipped. We see this very often, and interactivity is underlying most of them. And learning materials are attempted to be enriched and made accessible throughout the processes for each and every learner we can say. And collaborative learning is facilitated. This is one of the ideals and ideas. And learner-centeredness is again embraced and acknowledged all throughout. And one of the maybe more important dimensions is real life or real life-like problems are dealt with through, again, flipped education. And technology is there, yes, as the professors beforehand mentioned, and technologies help learners to learn better, learn more. And talking about history of flipped learning, yes, when we look at today, one of the latest approaches is flipped learning, actually, especially in the specific field of ELT. And implications are mostly found at tertiary levels in Turkey and in the globe. And yes, there is a developing bulk of literature observed, and there are a fair number of studies. Some are being conducted, some are with their results there. And there emerges a very important question. It is how to optimize the use of class hour. Maybe this is one of the most commonly mentioned things in these studies or in the bulk of research accumulated. And of course, if we are to talk about philosophies, it is important to question and to ask the question why. Why to go for the flipped classroom? Yes, we have dozens of good justifications in hand, especially after this scholarly conference. We have our ideas as well. Yes, simply to target individual learners and maybe smaller groups more, in parentheses, and to cater to learners with special needs or to cater to arising needs, emerging needs, or dissimilar learning paces. It's one of the realms of teaching and learning. We have dissimilar paces because we are human beings. And as a teacher, we have our own pace as well, which is changing. And through flipped learning, we hope to reach learners, each and every learner in the ideal, and the ones, including the ones experiencing learning difficulty, and become more inclusive in our practices in instruction, and try to see everyone. It doesn't mean that we're teaching everyone. We're praising everyone. We're literally seeing and looking at each and every student, hopefully, and ideally again. So we can touch the hearts and minds of learners. We can enhance the likelihood of touching their hearts and minds. And another important question, how to go for the flipped classroom? Yes, use technology, but in a wise fashion. So you can cater to different learning styles, expectations, and interests of digital natives, yes, in quotations. And again, hopefully it is important to promote self-learning and engage learners to the optimal level, and empowering learners and making them more autonomous. This is, of course, very important, a very important part, an innate part of the learning. And inspire instead of teaching. Maybe it is very important to highlight this here. Anyone can teach, in quotation marks, teach better than the other people, or you can teach something. But at the end, if you can inspire people, this is a miracle. But you can reach it, they say, through flipped learning. Or maybe you, again, enhance the likelihood of doing so. And you can even, maybe it sounds a bit utopic, but you can even transform yourself, your students, education, and even revolutionize education. At micro levels, fine, you can still do that. And rather than teacher-fronted sessions, needless to say, meaning peer learning, students in the front, and of course peer assistance. And it's important to still teach students, but what? To work toward a common goal, to learn together in a collaborative fashion, and toward the shared vision, okay? And become more responsible for their own learning, for their own understanding, for their own lives, actually. Because this is very much linked to becoming mature, becoming more academically oriented, and becoming more ready to life. And everyone needs to be more active. So, yes, 21st century skills, a buzzword, we've been listening to it, and higher order thinking. These are, of course, very important things, and you can, of course, have these in your flipped classroom. And as I said earlier, through flipped education, you're helping students to understand the life outside. The life in the classroom is a pedagogical one, very normal, but it's not the real life. You need to get your students to understand, to see, and to get prepared for real life. And flipped education, they say, is one of the best ways to do so. Still keeping the pedagogical kernel, but still helping them to get more prepared. Yes, We have a relatively shorter history of flipped learning because it's a novel understanding, relatively more innovative one. So yes, FLM, we see it in the literature. So flipped learning model is first emerged in the States and as part of social science teaching, especially, okay? But surprisingly, there were pre-reading tasks, okay? Maybe just the original form of flipped learning was that. Then, again in the States, as the professor mentioned, in Colorado, in one of the high schools, they just try to adapt flipped learning, flipped education, okay? And it will be fair to say that the current date actually holds a lot of different institutions at least trying to go flip, okay? There are a lot of different attempts and they were around the world and institutions, teachers, people at different levels, different corners in different corners of the world trying to flip their classes. Yes, needless to say, the widespread of the internet and the use of social media, they're all interconnected, but in a wise fashion, we need to be revisiting all these, okay? And the pandemic, and every cloud has a silver lining. Do you believe in that? Would you agree? Oh, okay. And digitization, yes. For example, the higher education is somehow or somewhat getting prepared to go more digital in Turkey. It's documented. It's been the case for around a decade or so. And yes, blended learning, hybrid education, these are all somehow, they're supporting each other. Sometimes, yes, misleading things, but oftentimes they help each other and support each other, these terms. So they all, in one way, contribute to the evolution of flipped education. You need to increase student thinking time, student participation, student voices. You need to listen to your students. Sometimes they don't talk, but you can still listen to them. There are ways, and I'm sure you know these ways more than I do. You know these well. So you need to be ready to listen to your students as the most important agents, okay? We are not the most important agents. Your students are the most important agents, actually, because they're learning for themselves. They're being educated, okay? And experimenting with novel or innovative methods, again, this is also very important. Resorting to technology in general or education technologies, okay, in a conscious fashion, purposeful fashion, and meaningful fashion. Please, let's underline these. And teacher, yes, we'll be talking about that. Teacher is just the guide, not the source or the presenter of the information. Course content is shared all throughout, okay? This could be just done through different platforms, through numerous sources. And learners get prepared outside the class, yes, and be ready to further learn in the classroom. Learning just doesn't stop, of course. It just continues. It doesn't come to a halt. And again, important. Classroom activities are ideally fun, okay? They make a difference. Students should be feeling that we're doing something great, or at least we're experimenting with our teachers something different. If they feel like this, great job of the teacher. And yes, we know the pillars of the model: flexible environment, learning culture, intentional content, professional educator. I'm moving a bit fast because we've been covering these for some time throughout the conference. Flexible environment, rearranging the classroom, even the physical setting I'm talking about, to enhance the likelihood of interaction patterns and make students work in pairs and groups. And learners feel comfortable in a non-threatening environment, and they can always consult the teacher throughout, and they can of course help each other and consult each other as well. And culture-wise, yes, instructor-orientedness is shifted by a learner-based one. The teacher invites learners to learn from and with each other. And in time, you can even witness students inviting their peers to learn together. And this is amazing. Really, this is wonderful. And of course, teacher first should let learners find and create their own ways of discovery, understanding, and finally learning. Content-wise, teachers should be making very, very important decisions as to what to teach indirectly, what to teach directly, decide on what to be inquired into during the lesson and outside the class, using the class hour in a very good way, and Socratic methods. I used to be referring to Socratic methods, especially during exams, not to give away everything, but I just felt sorry for students. Sometimes I just refer to Socratic methods. But actually, Socratic method has its own place in flipped learning and flipped education. It's in the literature. We can make use of this, and it's really fun. Especially social sciences courses. I try to resort to, Socratic methods. It's really fun, and it's something different. Maybe different is the key word there. Teachers, educators here, no worries, we still need each other. The sector, or education, the superior education, it needs us, but of course our role is altering, and maybe it's evolving into a more strategic one. So because we are the ones who choose the best content and how to deliver the best content to students is again our job. It's a very important job. And flipping the instruction is again our job, and again very important. And remembering the model is a relatively new paradigm, a phenomenon, and as the other professors said, it is a shift in mentalities. It's not a shift in one model or one approach or a physical thing. It's total shifting of mentalities, and this is very difficult, but at the end, it's a great thing. And along with the teaching going on, the assessment, there is this assessment, the reality of assessment, and we need to be, again, concentrating on different modes of assessment that comply with the philosophy, the underlying philosophy of flipped learning. And teacher provides personalized feedback and assistance all throughout. And learners can also benefit from their peers, their learning, their experiences, their ideas, and their feedback, of course. Homework can be moved to the classroom, learning and teaching become more dynamic, and teachers can create a more positive atmosphere, more positive environment, and they can develop better rapport with their students. After all these, of course, one should expect that you need to be doing things together with your students, you're sharing, you're learning together, and you can develop better rapport with them as well. And they themselves develop good friendships and rapport amongst themselves as well. Yes, it is important to note that this model shouldn't restrain itself just to the rather shallowy changes of lecturing and assignments. It's beyond that, of course. It's not memorization, it has nothing to do with superficial learning or surface level or raw type of learning, but conceptualization of knowledge, if possible. Or maybe it's just reached toward the end. And I try to focus on this because epistemology is one of my study areas. Decentralizing epistemologies is possible because it's not just the teacher. You're sharing responsibilities, knowledge, and even life with your students. No walls, no barriers. You're a learner too. You're just guiding them, monitoring them, inspiring them, okay? Inductive approaches are valuable, and teachers spare their invaluable time for face-to-face communication, not for marking, not for homework, not for lecturing for ages and ages without breaks, okay? And teacher is not the distributor of facts. And let's ask a question, what is a fact in 21st century, in this era? in post-truth era, what is a fact? We don't know. If we don't know that, we shouldn't be just pushing students to listen to us as the fact distributor, okay? And it's very good that through flipped learning we can have a digital archive of our own and create it collaboratively with our students even, and this is great. And we can always have access to class content, we can make changes, we can digitize, and we can document everything we have in hand. Intercommunication is important. It should be just valid everywhere throughout, okay? And formative assessment can be a very nice alternative, and remedial procedures are there as well, okay? Yes, we know that some students, especially in developing countries like Turkey, they have difficulty finding in internet, mobile devices, technologies, and this and that. And this is very important because ironically, as I said earlier, this is an inclusive type of approach, but ironically, things can turn out to be very non-inclusive. And it's against, again, the spirit, the philosophy of flipped learning. And teacher and student readiness, needless to say, is very important because mental readiness is their psychological readiness, pedagogical, intellectual readiness. These are all connected. They go hand in hand, okay? And trainings, meaningful, purposeful trainings, provided both for students and for teachers. I'm not one-off thing. I'm not just talking about one big seminar, no. Throughout the process, it's great if we can guide the guide in the classroom. And lesson study, for example, I've been experimenting with lesson study in my university with teachers trying to flip their classes. It's great because it complies with the nature of flipped learning. People learn together, people share their experiences, their fears, their worries, and it's very helpful, especially for relatively more inexperienced teachers. And a very big question. Shall we, can we, should we, how to flip already online courses delivered in difficult modes and with zillions of problems already in hand? Okay, what we're doing at Ankara Medipol University, okay, we're trying to do a lot of things because we are a newly established university, but in this conference I'm going to talk about the flip side. So yes, we are a very new university actually, and we're just established just before the pandemic, okay, the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we thought we can maybe pilot some different types of projects, and one of these was flipped learning. And for example, last semester I was teaching 21st Century Management and Leadership course. One was in Turkish, one was in English, and some other faculty are trying to flip their classes nowadays and currently as part of a project that I try to guide within the Center of Research and Learning, again very newly established center. Okay? And what I've done for my classes, 21st Century Leadership and Management classes, maybe this is not flipped learning per se, but just the beginnings, small steps. Okay? Everything was new anyways, and there was this pandemic thing. So I tried to make all course materials and sources, anything available from the beginning for the students, okay? And then I try to invite learners to contribute to the archive of resources. How? After checking with me, they added quotes, videos, even the videos they recorded. They interviewed people, they asked questions, they just share the names of the books that their peers should read, they believe, for example. And I also gave students pre-readings, short film quotes, short stories and tales, and I provided them with a set of questions as well, and I invited them to ask more and more questions. Come to class with a lot of questions in mind. not with the answers. We don't need the answers because we're still learning. We need questions and questions. If you have good questions, you can't refrain from better questions because you don't seek answers actually. Okay? So, during class hour, I let students to share ideas regarding pre-task. Okay? Sometimes the questions and answers, their feelings, opinions about the content, the class content, okay, lesson content. If they like the materials, they just share it within their pairs or groups, and what they understood cognitively, intellectually, what they found catchy or what they didn't like, for example, about the course content. And I always try to monitor. I was sometimes, sitting next to them, but just listening to them, they were asking me a lot of questions. And unfortunately, one of the popular questions was this: teacher, are we going right? Is it right? I was just trying to become a shadow there. I was just listening to them. I was saying very good, keep going, and I was just going and moving to other groups, and I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't providing feedback, but they were searching for feedback because it's the way they got used to. Okay. And what happened at the end? What happened? Any guesses? Please.
Everybody found their own way of learning.
Yes, hopefully. Number one. And they were first graders. Yes, hocam.
You came up with a great idea.
Yes. Why not? Yes, hocam, buyurun.
Do you get any favorite teacher?
Hopefully. Who knows? What else? Any guesses?
Confused, also.
Yes, throughout the process, hocam, this was the case. But demotion for me. And then I offered the rector, actually we were of course working very closely anyway, so I offered to open a center to support all faculty, of course if I could do that, to flip their courses and beyond that of course, and support the other students in the form of a center of learning and teaching, because I am the only educational researcher in my university. We don't have school of education or anything like that. And what we're currently doing, we're trying to make our course materials, course content, and resources available in our system, university system, which is integrated to Teams. And students are getting used to that. This is important. It's becoming a culture or something embedded in the ethos of the university, and which is again very important. And I'm trying to meet each and every faculty to talk about the ways how they could go flip and what they could do for their specific courses, classes, and their specific, of course, student profiles. And we're going to do that for more and more classes, hopefully. And we're also designing different ways, different medium to reach our aims in terms of flipped education. For example, as I said earlier, lesson study. And we're now conducting action research. We're conducting case studies. All, why? Because we're trying to address different issues, especially in the frame or within the frame of flipped education. Faculty of Medicine, Medical University, one of the popular schools. So in our Faculty of Medicine, we're trying to find alternative ways to flip the classes. Theoretical ones we have, as you can guess, and labs, more practical ones. And interestingly, all faculty are eager to do something in that sense. For example, they're assigning their course content, they're actually providing students with the lesson content in the form of house MD, for example. Students just watch the series, take notes, and come to class prepared to discuss a lot of different questions. Have you had the chance to watch House? You like that? Can you imagine Faculty of Medicine students watching that? Is it meaningful to you? Students just adore that. They like, okay? And sometimes we have different set of questions, we provide them with different materials. For example, they video record themselves, teachers, when they're, for example, operating a patient, okay, or different people going for surgical operations, some experiments, and we have in different textbooks augmented reality features, and teachers ask students to watch the videos in the form of augmented reality, okay, and then come to class prepared with a lot of different questions in mind, and to discuss these questions and to find more questions, better questions. And yes, it's a very new endeavor. We're still observing, still learning. So maybe it's not the ideal, but we're just attempting something in a collaborative way, together. Maybe it is the most important thing. Great, it's reaching the end. But I just want you to come up with different highlights. You can think of all the conference even, or my little session. Can you share some highlights? Can we together have a summary part here, do you think? Yes?
You made a change.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hopefully. Yes. What else? Yes, Hocam.
That's what I thought.
Thank you very much, Hocam. What else?
It's not about the teacher teaching, but the students learning.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anything else? Can you remember anything from my session?
Yes.
Hopefully, yes. Okay. Yes.
You can inspire your students by making them watch things like house, things related to their profession to give them motivation.
Yes, exactly. So this important real life like thing or simulation like thing and preparing students for real life thing somehow reached. You're right. Yes, a very important aspect of flipped learning. Anything else? Buyurun hocam.
Do you know the minimum age that they try learning? Minimum age.
Actually, I don't know it. I don't know.
Because
Do you know it? Is it a rhetorical or real question?
This is a real question, and we have been working with Metu, and my students were 11, and I just wonder if there are any other studies below 11.
Theoretically, why not? People can just experiment with lower levels. I think there is no barrier theoretically, but I don't know if it's practically or in real life. I don't know really. But we should be checking the relevant literature, very, very recent literature, of course.
Yeah.
Especially if we want to flip out also given the ages below 11, 10, or 12, we need the help of the parents. Without parents, it is unlikely to have an achievement in the class with them.
And that's not the ideal option for the parents.
Yeah, yeah.
To our surprise.
That as all our speakers emphasize sport, that requires a mind shift. Mind shift. So in that sense, I think kind of reflection and maybe we expect that it takes time actually for students to make that shift, particularly in cultures like ours. This might just take much longer than the time needed in other countries. For instance, we have also seen it in our project too. For instance, with the Turkish case, I mean, we're working with a language actually, so we have seen that. I mean, as you have said, without the parent support, it really takes us much longer time. But in the Netherlands, for instance, I mean, they're so used to it. But even that, I mean, I cannot just but relatively, I mean, we are seeing that that process took kind of slightly shorter in that sense. I think the point I'd like to make is that it has to do with the educational culture as well, I suppose, in that sense. And by the way, in the recent research literature in this journal, I actually came across a study done in the primary school context, and some scholars, just maybe some of you are already familiar with that. So they just also have shown that it could be applicable in the primary level as well. But you know, we have doubts about it, and that's how we discuss with our colleagues too in the project, because I mean, for instance, in terms of cognitive engagement, for instance, these self-regulation skills are really primary. However, it takes, they find it really hard actually with the study group, the ages. If you remember, yeah, we worked with the ages between 12 to 14 or 15. So it is really kind of relatively hard, I would say. But of course, I mean, we need to just think that in the case of fluid learning, as Pınar Hocam said, even at this university level and with other teachers too, I mean, we really need to be patient, I think. But we should persevere. Yes.
Vishal Hocam, I think this would be a much better implementation if this happens to be an institutional decision, whether it's a primary school, right, Hocam?
Yeah.
Or a university. If this is an institutional decision and if all the parties agree to follow these steps, and if this is inserted in the curriculum, and if there's a mutual agreement with all the parties, including the parents, in the case of primary schools, I think that would be much easier to follow. Other than that, like individually, it's really hard to follow these steps, both with the students and with the teachers as well.
Exactly, yeah. You made a really very good point, Hocam, because without the institutional support, I mean, things are really quite hard, particularly as our plenary speakers said, preparing the materials. For example, I was working with pre-service teachers, and we spent hours and hours, and I would like to thank our team members and Eylem Hocam and Hilal Hocam too, and they are in the two foundation schools for all these valuable feedbacks. Without the feedback from all the parties, I think we couldn't just give them the final shape. So in that sense, I think both parental support and the students, that's the kind of, I guess, a team effort in that sense.
Also, Ahmet Hocam has mentioned how difficult it is to prepare all those materials, like including all the skills into that, and that would be a good work, and this is what you have been doing at Medipol as well, and I really admire that because you are like starting it as an institution within all the departments as well, and that's a great attitude towards that.
Thank you very much, Hocam. As a doctor of education management, I should be doing that, maybe the managerial thing and managing the. But yes, you're very right. It should be at the end of the day the philosophy of the institution. Otherwise, it's lost somewhere. Yes. And Vishal Hocam, you're very right. I was teaching at Bilkent University, and I was trying to, teach through, for example, inductive method or discovery method, and students were dying to understand what I'm trying to do. And they were, at the end, for example, they were begging for me to say the heading, the title of the session. And I, for example, said present perfect. And they were relieved. And they were always, jotting down notes, writing the fancy title there, present perfect tense. And they're more, comfortable then. Because it's us. It's the system. We should be very patient to change things. Especially if you're an educator, needless to say, you should be very patient. Patient with yourself too. Hocam, you were saying something.
Yes, I was going to sum it up by just asking another question.
Of course, great.
You were talking about your students and how you were patient and how they were trying to be patient while they are experiencing a new system. And it being one of the K-12 teachers and the one who has experienced flipped learning with little kids, I would like to ask you, do you suggest that the younger we start, the better it is to change the system with the flipped learning? Thank you.
Yes, hocam. I would definitely say yes. But again, as one single educator, you're very powerful, but it's not enough. At times, you need the support of the institution, the system even, which is a key topic in our case. But still, you need the support of different stakeholders, shareholders. So you're right. If we start, maybe it's not the flipped learning per se. If we can empower students at early ages, wonderful. Maybe it's the ideal thing. Empowering them, telling them that they are valuable, they need to be taking over the responsibility of their own lives, their own learning, their own development. This is maybe the key thing.
Thank you.
Hocam, thank you. Buyurun hocam.
Pınar hocam, my conclusion is that the idea for learning, for teaching is the same all the time. I mean, we need student motivation, teacher initiative, but the key is for this split impact project or the idea is about how to do it. So we are searching for ways of implementing. All the speakers today talk about basics, but also their own contribution, different understandings of flipped learning.
Exactly.
That's my conclusion.
Exactly, hocam. Thank you, very important. And maybe we're searching for different paths, routes, or ways, but if we can't find the best one, maybe there is no best one, or we can create our own. Believe me, it's more realistic and more powerful. Really. Okay. Any more questions or comments? Buyurun hocam.
Before I finish, I would like to add that I really realized that you wrote it on purpose because I wasn't like, I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but because I wasn't at the beginning session, I could just join this one. I realized that when you use the word personally, you should be monitoring the students personally because sometimes it's just not monitoring them about the topic, but also on their personal lives and approaching and recording. Thanks for that human point of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I got the message.
We thank Dr. Ayyıldız for her inspirational speech, and I would like to invite Dr. Kaçar to give her clap.